Right now on the National Weather Desk, tracking the tropics. Other areas of potential development have formed in the Atlantic. We'll show you the 5 systems we're keeping our eye on.
The hurricane also caused flooding and wind damage to roofs, mobile homes, boats, trees, and power lines across southeast Florida.
We'll look back at a major hurricane that slammed into Florida 20 years ago today. We'll hear from the firefighters who rescued 5 people from a truck that got swept away in fast-moving floodwaters as a result of downpours in Texas.
Some trees may shed their leaves before they even change color at all, or the colors on the leaves may be a little bit more muted.
And we'll find out how the weather is impacting this year's fall foliage already.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. We begin with a look at the tropics this morning, where there are now 5 disturbances that we are monitoring for development. The newest system is the area of low pressure that's been bringing repeated waves of heavy rain into Texas for most of this week. 3 other systems are in the open Atlantic, and the final one is currently spinning across the Caribbean and could end up in the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. But as of right now, none of these systems has more than a 20% chance of developing into a tropical storm in the next 7 days, according to the National Hurricane Center. And despite those systems, this has been a very below average season in the Atlantic, with this being one of the quietest periods in tropical development in over 50 years. So what's causing this lull? There are probably several factors at play, and meteorologist Alex Cordero explains.
First things first, the water temperatures have definitely been above average across a good chunk of the main development region and the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf Stream waters. This is something that these cyclones feed off of. They could use very hot waters throughout the season and even before the season. For the majority of the Atlantic, that has not been an issue. There has been some below average temperatures right off the coast of Africa, which may play a role. I'll get to that in just a moment. As a matter of fact, right now, one thing that has been very different with these tropical cyclones that have attempted to form is they're moving further north, or they're coming off of Africa further north than usual. And as a result, they're tapping into that cooler water and they're pulling in drier air off of Africa. So that might be hindering their circulations a bit. That could be one reason. There's another reason. Wind shear during La Nina seasons tends to be below average, but the last couple of weeks, it's been the opposite. We've had a lot more wind shear. We've seen a lot of these systems come off the coast and they just don't develop. Wind shear could be something that gets in the way as well. In addition to all of that, sometimes the atmospheric patterns force more sinking air or rising air to kind of rotate through the planet. In this case, we have a lot of sinking air over the central Atlantic. That could be playing a role. So all of those together could be explaining why, even though it's supposed to be a very active season, we haven't had a lot. No complaining here, by the way.
And today marks a major hurricane anniversary in Florida, which had a very busy season in 2004. According to the National Weather Service, the state was slammed by 4 hurricanes within 6 weeks. Jennifer Collins tells us about Hurricane Francis, the second storm in that unwelcome group.
20 years ago today, and 2 weeks after Hurricane Charlie made landfall along southwest coast of Florida, Hurricane Francis was on approach to the Treasure Coast, making landfall on Hutchinson Island near Stewart. The slow-moving storm was a Category 2 at landfall with maximum winds of 105 miles per hour. Francis produced an estimated 8-foot storm surge near Vero Beach. The hurricane also caused flooding and wind damage to roofs, mobile homes, boats, trees, and power lines across southeast Florida. The storm produced more than $8.9 billion in damage, mostly in Florida. Francis was the second hurricane to impact Florida in 2004. Just 3 weeks later, Hurricane Jeanne would make landfall in the exact same location as a Category 3 on September 25th.
Nearly 70 million Americans are under heat alerts today. Las Vegas is expected to reach 100 degrees the rest of this week. But most of those alerts are along the Pacific coast, from Washington state all the way to southern Arizona. And those alerts are expected to last through Friday night. Oftentimes, the Santa Ana winds can be blamed for excessive heat in California, but that's not what's happening right now. Meteorologist Aaron Perlman explains.
Triple digits are here today, but there's a piece of this that you're probably thinking this is the Santa Ana winds. That usually tends to bring in warm weather down in Southern California. True, it's when high pressure comes over the desert Southwest, creates a lot of sunshine, but in return it creates this very warm air. Now the ridge usually sits right over the Great Basin. It's typically right over in the Nevada area, just in between the Rockies and the high Sierras. And you get a strong offshore wind that's connected with this. That wind, in return, will drive up temperatures up to a century marker above normal conditions you typically see. This is Santa Ana heat, creating the Santa Ana winds. And the winds here up to 45, 55 miles per hour. We're starting to see that this week. The perfect scenario, though, to make that really kick off is a surface low just off the California Baja coastline. That's not there right now. But when it does, this is what will make it very dangerous for wildfire growth, our extreme temperatures, and, of course, keeping a drought. Now, we're close to that today as you see extreme temperatures around areas along the Colorado River Valley into Vegas, Los Angeles, and, of course, here in the San Joaquin Valley where we have that extreme heat locked in for you and I, or anybody who lives in Southern California. So that will be the case going in from now all the way into this weekend. But it's not the Santa Ana winds yet. That should ramp up in October going into the month of March.
And take a look at this video out of Rancho Palos Verdes, California, just southwest of Los Angeles. A state of emergency was declared there earlier this week after severe land shifts. More than 200 homes in the city had their power cut, some for more than 24 hours as the shifts threatened utility lines. According to the officials, land movement in that area has increased following severe storms over the past 2 years. And this dramatic video shows 5 people clinging to a tree after a pickup truck got swept away in floodwaters as a result of downpours in San Angelo, Texas. All 5 people were rescued, including a 3-year-old child. Copeland Welch got the perspective of some of those who brought them to safety during Tuesday's ordeal.
Most often, when we think of firefighters, we think of fire. But occasionally, water can be dangerous too. And the 3 San Angelo firefighters say they are
happy. It was a very positive outcome, and everybody came out of it safe.
That was the rescue truck lieutenant, and he says situations like this are an opportunity to learn.
As soon as we got in, we knew we needed to reset some things, and it wasn't necessarily prepared for us to go across it safely. So, some things you learn is don't be too hesitant to jump in necessarily.
The driver of the rescue truck says instincts kicked in immediately.
When I first went across the rope to get to them, there was just a bunch of people in the tree. They all looked scared and cold because some of them only had pants on. So I didn't really talk to any of them. DPS would put the life jacket on who they wanted to go next, and then I would take that person and go across the rope with them. It was cold. Rainwater's pretty cold.
How does it make you feel to know that you played a role in saving each of those people's lives?
It makes me feel good. And that's exactly what it is. We played a role in it. We're not the only ones that were there. We're not the only ones that participated in this. There's many hands on deck that made this work out right. And it just makes me feel real good that we pulled it off and nobody got hurt and everybody came home.
And whether it's storm surge flooding or flash flooding from rising creeks and rivers, it doesn't take a lot of water to sweep a vehicle off the road. Meteorologist Teresa Carter explains how just a little bit of water can cause great danger.
Floods are the most natural disaster in the United States and cause the most damage out of all of the natural disasters. Did you know that 6 inches of fast-moving water is enough to knock a person down? Now, don't try to walk through floodwaters. Often the water is much deeper than you know and could contain debris or contaminants. We've all heard this. If floodwaters rise around your car, abandon your car and move to the higher ground, if you can do so and safely. You and the vehicle can be quickly swept away. 6 inches of water will reach the bottom of most passenger cars, causing loss of control and possible stalling. A foot of water will float many vehicles, and 2 feet of water can carry away most vehicles, including SUVs and pickup trucks. Did you know that over half of flood deaths occur in vehicles? That is why we always say, turn around, don't drown.
If you're looking for more weather content, be sure to check us out on social media. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk or scan the QR code on the bottom left corner of your screen. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll head to Oregon and find out why the risk for wildfires in the state is so high right now. And we'll find out how apple growers in Ohio are dealing with their extreme drought.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. We have a beautiful stretch of weather on the way in the Northeast. We have unlimited sunshine on the way again for today with temps in the upper 70s and low 80s. We have low humidity. This is about as good as it gets for early September. After a cool start, notice these temperatures warming up to seasonably mild levels with a lot of sun. There's a storm that's going to pass off to our east going into the late week time frame, but Thursday looks to be another delightful day with a lot of sun and highs in the 70s.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at your mid-Atlantic region, and this is going to be a pretty decent forecast. Still dry weather to come your way through Thursday and even into Friday, but a front is approaching and will bring good chances of rainfall towards your weekend. It looks like it's not going to arrive until closer to Saturday. So it looks like decent weather. Humidity slowly stepping up. Temperatures will be in the mid to upper 70s as we make your way through Thursday. Friday, a few degrees warmer with the humidity. We'll still hit the low 80s.
Good morning, meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg with a look at your southeast regional forecast for this Thursday. Along a stall frontal boundary, this would be the focusing mechanism for locally heavy rains across extreme coastal upstate Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Could be seeing some flooding as that moves up in the lower Mississippi River Valley. Scattered shower storms for much of Florida. The rest of the southeast will be mainly dry with high pressure in control of the weather. Highs ranging from the low 80s up north to the low to mid 90s through central and south Florida.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
In Oregon, they're expecting potentially dangerous conditions in the next couple of days. It'll be hot, dry, and windy. These conditions coming roughly 4 years after deadly wildfires broke out across the state. Fire season is not over, and crews want to avoid a repeat of history. Shelby Slaughter reports.
Humans cause about 70% of fires, more than 70% of fires in Oregon.
This is exactly what Jessica New Year tells me the Oregon Forestry Department is trying to avoid over the next couple of days.
The less human-caused fires we can have on the landscape, the less strained our resources are.
With the combination of dry and windy conditions mixed with extreme heat, New Year is urging the public to take extra steps to make sure fires don't start.
That's all makings for fire weather.
Right now, there are 2 fires crews in Central Oregon are keeping an eye on: the Copperfield Fire and the Shoe Fly Fire. More than 500 people are already working to get them under control. Fire weather meteorologist John Bunk is one of the many helping forecast these conditions, so crews know exactly what to do.
The big point to make with fires and under current weather conditions is, yes, we did have quite a bit of rainfall a few weeks ago, and everybody may be thinking that, fire season must be over.
Drought conditions are hitting Ohio hard. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has declared 22 counties in the state national disaster areas. Katie Amrine reports that these conditions are making apple season difficult for longtime orchard owners.
We've never had a drought like this before.
Zelda and Steve Carnes have been running their apple orchard for decades, and the weather has never left them high and dry until now. Drought is plaguing their growing season.
If we don't get rain here soon, the other apples that are still left out here the trees may just give up and decide, hey, we're done. We don't have anything left in the bank to give to these apples, so they'll start falling is what will happen.
If the apples don't ripen, they can't be sold, which could be a financial hit for the orchard.
It's going to be, not quite as pretty on the outcome as far as our revenue because of the extra expense. So we'll just see how it ends up at the end, of the season.
The Carnes have found a way for some of their trees to stay hydrated during this drought.
We actually run an irrigation system. This black tubing has drippers on it, and these drippers, when it's turned on, actually drip water for each one of those trees, and we usually try to give them about a gallon of water every other day. Last year, we never turned the drippers on. We never had to water at all, so they're kind of a huge difference from one season to the next.
Only the smaller rooted trees are a part of the irrigation system. For the larger and newly rooted trees, the cairns have to individually water them.
We have had to hand water all of those. They get a 5-gallon bucket of water about every 2 to 3 days.
Typically, apples grow from the end of August to the middle of October. But because of the drought, the season is expected to wrap up at the beginning of October.
In central New York, cooler than normal temperatures in recent weeks are affecting autumn leaves. Some parts of the region were under frost advisories earlier this week. It's prompted leaves to start changing their colors already. Meteorologist Violet Schreiber explains how frost can affect fall foliage.
Well, it can actually cause cell damage in the leaf, leading to some brown areas as the leaves essentially die off. The frost can also cause early leaf drops. Some trees may shed their leaves before they even change color at all, or the colors on the leaves may be a little bit more muted because of that frost. The frost also causes a tree response. It tells the tree that winter is on the way, and it starts the color changing process earlier than usual. So that's why these cooler weather periods we've had has begun that change. So what kind of weather do we want for the perfect fall foliage viewing season? Well, a rainy summer helps to retain the leaves on the trees, so we have the maximum amount of leaves cover on it, and that's because the rain keeps the tree healthy. A sunny fall leads to more sugar production in the leaves, which is what changes that color. Shorter days initiates that, and warm days also helps as well. Cool nights shrinks the veins on the leaves, keeping that sugar or bright colors within the leaf. What we don't want is summer drought, because then the leaves die off faster. A cloudy and rainy fall leads to less sugar production. Strong wind blows the leaves off the trees. High heat and hard frost can also damage the leaves. And even though we're seeing some signs of fall, the I Love New York first official fall foliage report isn't released until September 12th, which is about a week away.
And it's that time of year where you will hear people say fall-like temperatures. But what temperatures are considered fall-like? It's different in different areas of the country, but meteorologist Joy Bettenhausen recently posted on Instagram about what people in Oklahoma consider to be fall-like temperatures. Take a look.
I don't know about you, but it's been hot, and I cannot wait for fall temperatures. So let's talk about what a fall temperature actually is. Well, we haven't seen fall-like temperatures, at least within this last week of August. We've seen more 96-degree days than I've ever seen consecutively before in my life. And we hit our warmest day of the year on August 6th, which was 102 degrees. So I wanted to have a little fun with this, and I made a poll on my Facebook page, and I asked folks in Green Country, and really anyone who's following my Facebook, what do you consider as a fall temperature? 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s, something else? And a majority of folks said 60s. Honestly, I would agree with that, although I'm okay with 70s too. So as we get into September and looking at data for Tulsa from 1991 to 2020, our average high temperature in September is 85. If you ask the folks of Green Country, that is not a fall-like temperature to them, but by October we're at 74 and November 61. So I took the average of all three of those high temperatures for the month, since essentially those 3 months are considered season of fall. And so our average fall high temperature for Tulsa would be 73.3 degrees. Now, I don't have that in the forecast, sadly, at least going through the next week, but hopefully we get to see that soon.
Well, to avoid the dangers of lightning, the common saying is, when thunder roars, head indoors. Sometimes, though, not only is there no thunder, but lightning can strike when skies above aren't even cloudy. Meteorologist Evan Chikvara talks about bolts from the blue.
So I had a friend reach out to me. He was on the golf course and said, hey, it's looking pretty gnarly to the west, but it's clear overhead. Should I be concerned? I said, you should probably get off the golf course. So look at these thunderstorms. This is a radar loop from Sunday, and this is at 5:20. You can see these cells. They're fairly far apart. In between them, we had a sunny sky. But this is exactly when lightning can be very dangerous. So let's take a look at what happens here. So I got the golf course plotted. Storm moves in, and we get what's called out of the blue lightning. It's called that because that's exactly what it is. You'll be standing in one spot looking up, blue skies overhead, thunderstorm off in the distance, and you'll get these arcs that will actually stretch out ahead, cloud to ground lightning, and can seemingly catch people very, very much by surprise. They can strike up to 25 miles away. So that's your parent thunderstorm. These extend out ahead of where the actual thunderstorm is, out of that anvil. And it will be clear overhead. You'll walk outside and you'll look up and be like, there's no thunderstorm here. But if you can hear thunder, just go inside. It's definitely not worth it. Don't want to be on a golf course. Don't want to be on a ball field. There's still a few weeks left of summer, so keep that in mind. If you're ever outside, hear that rumble of thunder, head inside.
And as we head to a short break, we soar to Rocky Mountain National Park and take in the views of the park's stunning lakes.
Good Thursday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. We've got a cold front moving its way across the plains, and it's going to cool us down behind that. Now, out ahead of it, we're going to be in the 80s or 90s in some spots, but the scattered rain continue to work its way to the east, and we're cooler behind that in the 70s. See that rain pushing its way to the east, and a few places still in the 80s tomorrow. A lot of 70s and even some 60s across the Great Lakes for high temperatures, and a lot of sun returning heading into the weekend.
Hello, good Thursday morning to you. Meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast today across the region, and we will see a few more showers and storms yet again. From Austin to San Antonio, really more isolated. Better chances from Houston to New Orleans, across Louisiana. See those highs in the 80s. That's really not that bad. And then an area of heavy rain along the Gulf Coast into Louisiana could impact the New Orleans area with highs around the 80s to around about 90 degrees. Pockets of heavy rain. Otherwise, setting up a pretty good looking afternoon Friday across the region.
Well, hi there and a good Thursday morning to everybody. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Western U.S. in September, we often get a summer resurgence, especially in the Pacific Northwest. And is that ever going to be the case later today? Look at Portland, the Rose City coming up to a scorching 102. SeaTac not far behind at 91 in the Emerald City and 95 out of San Diego. An excessive heat watcher warning in place for most of the western United States this afternoon. And that's the scene from here.
Rain is an example of precipitation reaching the ground, but there's a type of rain that doesn't travel far enough to reach us. Meteorologist A.J. Mastrangelo explains.
To get precipitation, you need clouds, and as those clouds continue to hold moisture, too much moisture, rain starts to fall down from the cloud, and the rain actually does eventually reach the ground. It's not just rain that is classified as precipitation. Snow, sleet, pretty much anything that falls from the sky that's in that liquid or solid state will be determined that. Virga, though, it's rain falling from the sky, and what happens is it encounters dry air at the lower levels, so that rain actually evaporates before it can reach the ground. And what sometimes happens is that radar can sometimes mistake Virga for precipitation. How these radar beams work, well, they send out a signal and they get a return signal, and when they're propped up into the atmosphere, sometimes they detect the Virga when it's actually not raining at the ground level. So that's why we use our surface observations to kind of understand and analyze whether or not that precipitation is actually reaching the ground. But you can see it visually, especially days with high contrast. Joe sending in this picture here on Chime In. You can see the Virga here not reaching the ground at the airport, but if you look further off to the right, a lot darker, that rain shaft all the way down to the ground.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Thursday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for the National Weather Desk.